Isabel, very good morning to you. I find myself kind of more and more disinterested in talking to the Tories, really. I mean, I'm not really quite sure what they're for at the moment. They kind of, they make noises and they kind of say things, but they don't really achieve very much, do they?
It was really, well, I thought it was really interesting listening to an interview that Kemi Badenoch gave yesterday. I mean, she was so weak on immigration, and I was really surprised by that, because it ought to be glaringly obvious to her as the new leader of the opposition that that is going to be either the number one or the number two issue in the run-up to the next election. And never mind the next election, what about now? You know, we've got a really dire situation with people continuing to flood across the channel, and also massive legal migration. And yet, repeatedly, she failed and refused to make any noises about any kind of cap on immigration. In fact, what she talked about is, well, we need to find out what kind of numbers this country can sustain. Well, that isn't the kind of language that small c Conservatives want to hear at this point. What we know is that this country cannot sustain anything like what we've got now. And yet she just wasn't saying that. You know, the rhetoric appeared to be all about, well, we can't really make any commitments, and, yeah, obviously it's a bit too much. I mean, that is not going to get the Conservative Party back in a winning position. And I was just surprised that she is either so lacking in political instincts or so poorly advised that she isn't a little bit more punchy on that.
Yeah, and yet she went after Keir Starmer on Wednesday at Prime Minister's Questions last week on immigration, which seemed kind of mad, given that the Tories had completely screwed it up.
Well, completely. I mean, the only way that the Tories can recover on immigration is by being very clear, as she made a start of doing, that they completely ballsed it up when they were in office, and that we need a radical reset. It's no good saying, oh, well, sorry, we did get a few mistakes. We did make a few mistakes, and now we'll re-look at it. The country is crying out for something far more radical than that. I've lost count of the number of times I get messages from people demanding mass deportations. That is where the mood of a lot of people in this country is at. And that is, may sound very dramatic language, and it's very hard language for politicians to use. But what I'm saying is that if the Conservatives want to get back into power, they're going to have to somehow bridge the gap between all those people, and I suspect there are millions of them quietly, that would support deportations on a very significant scale, and her own rhetoric, which is, well, I don't really want to commit to too much, and it's all a bit difficult, but obviously immigration is too hard.
It's almost like they want it all just to go away. I mean, I always got this impression when they were in government that, Rishi Sunak and, Liz Truss, not so much because they didn't really get a chance to do it, but Boris Johnson, before him, they sort of didn't really want to talk that much about it because they hoped that it would all stop. Well, it isn't going to stop, is it?
It isn't. And, this is such a gift to reform. This is why I find it so politically strange that both these so-called main parties would leave this territory completely wide open for an insurgent party. It seems bizarre that you would hand them that gift.
And what do you make of what's going on with the Brexit sort of dividend, if you like? Lots of noises being made now from Europe saying that Keir Starmer wants to have closer ties with them. He might have to make major concessions in order to get new deals on trade. It's like, hang on a minute, nobody asked him to do this. Nobody said to him, why don't you go over there and offer up some more fishing licences for the French? Or maybe, if you like, let's have some free movement for the under-30s. Nobody wants that.
I mean, again, Keir Starmer is utterly predictable in his ability to misjudge everything. He really thinks that there's a political gain at this point from ever closer ties to Europe. We are teetering on the brink of recession here, but it's not like the Eurozone is, booming and everything's going great across the EU. I mean, look at Germany. It's a total mess. Look at France. Across the West, in fact, things are going pretty dismally, both economically and socially.
Right.
Be much better looking to America and seeing the enormous surge in confidence that has accompanied the prospect of a Trump administration, and with it, lower regulation, a smaller state, lower taxation, all the exact opposite of what Rachel Reeves is doing. And already the indicators are that her so-called agenda for growth has gone in the absolute opposite direction. The only thing that's growing is the despair of the voting public and the regret of those that actually voted Labour and are now wishing they hadn't done.
Yeah, and of course the other thing that's growing is the debt. And the unemployment league table as well. What do you make of this Chinese spy story? I keep getting sort of poo-pooed by people going, oh, it's not that important. Andrew doesn't really know anything. I'm going, hang on a minute. If you're China and you get some guy, H6, whatever his name is, who goes, he's on the phone going, great news, we've got Prince Andrew. He's going to take us into Parliament. He's going to take us into Windsor. He's given us a bit of information about this, that and the other. He's met, I've met David Cameron now. I've met Theresa May. I mean, this is a big story, isn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't downplay this at all. And I also think there's a lot more to come out on this. Some years ago, I obtained a cache of emails between Andrew and some of his closest business allies. And I recall there was all sorts of stuff in there about China. I've obviously got to dig those files out again, and I did write about it quite extensively at the time. But it all takes on a new complexion, doesn't it, when we know about this proximate relationship that was being formed. I'm with you on this one, Mike. I think the whatever his name is, H6, played an absolute blinder, didn't he? I mean, the idea that Andrew doesn't know anything, well, he might not, but his daughters are very well known to be extremely close to the king and to to the king's children. I don't think you can possibly say Andrew doesn't know anything. If he doesn't know anything directly, he'll get it from his own children. And as you say, it's a huge coup for the Chinese regime to have got somebody into the heart of the establishment in this way.
Right.
And you shouldn't downplay it.
And presumably, if he's doing it, there's lots of other people doing it, whether they're from China or from whichever other country that we don't appear to be very good at keeping an eye on.
Well, we're just far too naive about this. I mean, I used to attend a lot of defence conferences and the Chinese were all over them. I could never believe it. The Chinese would send a bunch of delegates to our defence conferences at which we had the most senior military and armed forces personnel there. I mean, the idea that we would send, uniformed armed forces personnel to be allowed to go into the Chinese equivalent is completely insane. But we just seem to think, oh, well, everyone, let's be nice, And here we have Keir Starmer saying we need a reset in the relationship with China. What we need is a reset which involves a massive reality check when it comes to what the Chinese regime is all about. And it doesn't wish us well. It only wishes China well. And they are very, very good at finding ways to increase their power and dominance and their economic and trade control over the world without making it look as if that's what they're up to.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Isabel Oakeshott there, Talks International editor, talking about China and our relationship with it.